That was just perfect, Daddy.
We are talking Cursed Encounters. This is a 2025 anthology movie, and this has 6 short stories in it, and it appears that this isn't an anthology where the stories were made specifically for this anthology. It looks like they were just kind of like short films that were in and around the internet or have been released and have just been curated and put in a kind of a collection. There's no kind of wraparound. They just kind of start one after another. And as with a lot of anthologies, there's multiple directors and obviously people involved. There's no through line or anything here. No kind of like similar stories. So it is just a kind of a random collection of broadly kind of horror or horror adjacent kind of movies. Now, I've literally just watched this anthology, and I have to say, I'm struggling to really remember much about it. Was there any highlights? Now, for me, probably the first movie, which is called Mantis, is the one that stood out. It's actually not anything kind of spectacular in regards to visuals or anything like that, but to me it was the most solidly made film. There's definitely some kind of like directorial flourishes here, and the title kind of gives it away, I have to say. And it's about this woman that is in a laundrette, or a laundromat as they call it in America, and she's being kind of somewhat harassed by a guy who is kind of trying to come on to her, and but she might have darker intentions. That's all I'll kind of say on it. But the interesting thing here is that they kind of really don't really show you the guy's face. He's kind of sort of kept out of shot and stuff. You just kind of see his body and stuff until they get back to his house, and then she's kind of somewhat kind of kept out of shot. So I found that there's some directorial kind of flourishes there, and sort of stylistic choices that I kind of quite liked. And despite this only being a short film, I felt this had more of a confident pace in it, and in a way the most kind of like complete sort of story arc in it. So that I kind of quite liked. There's nothing especially outstanding about it, and it's relatively obvious. I mean, even the title sort of gives it away a little bit, but I thought it was a solid movie at the very least. And to be honest with you, that's the only one that I think stood out. There's a couple here that I think has some moments. There's just one where there's one where we have a guy that kind of does a deal with the devil, and I think that has some nice moments in it, but it is ultimately just two guys sitting at a table conversing. But I think it has some kind of interesting kind of setup at the very least, and that I sort of quite liked. And there's a very chaotic one, which story-wise was kind of all over the place, but this was probably the most overtly sort of horrific, and sort of had the most going on visually, at least, where there's this kind of clown one, but it's extraordinarily chaotic about what's actually kind of going on, and feels almost like a kind of an experimental film. So I think those two had their moments, but as I say, I don't think necessarily story-wise they were especially sort of strong. There's one where this girl finds this guy kind of trapped under seemingly like a boat under a pier, whilst her mum's having sex with this guy in a car. So she's just wandering around the beach, and the guy just kind of says, "Oh, he's like a." He doesn't see him. He just kind of tells him, "Oh, it's like a kind of like a he eats little girls," or something like that. And I think the idea here is that she's kind of like visualizing this, and things happen. Again, a kind of a neat idea, but it ultimately I didn't think was especially interesting or anything like that. And then the other two, I've got to say I barely remember, to be honest. So this I've got to say, outside of the first movie, which I thought was actually quite good, has a couple of moments in the other stories, but some of them, really just don't register at all. At least for me. Other people might find this movie kind of interesting, But to me, it was just like these films, with the exception of the first one, kind of seemed half-baked. So I really didn't find this as a particularly interesting anthology. Admittedly, I am not the biggest fan of anthology movies because I find the kind of the lack of characterization because of the short format a little kind of hard to get interested in. But even for me, I found this one particularly kind of unengaging. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10, to be honest with you. I really didn't find it particularly interesting. Have you seen it? Please let me know your thoughts, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.